What you are seeing is the forward cargo hold of the RMS Titanic, resting more than 3 kilometers beneath the surface of the North Atlantic, in a state that has changed very little since the moment seawater claimed it in April of 1912. This space was never designed to be remembered. It was functional, enclosed, and silent, even when the ship was alive. Cargo holds were places of purpose, not ceremony. Crates were lowered, secured, and forgotten as the ship moved on. When Titanic sank, this compartment filled gradually, not violently. Water entered, air escaped, and the hold accepted the ocean without resistance. Over time, fine sediment began to settle across the floor, carried by slow, patient currents. Each layer fell without interruption, forming a smooth surface that remains largely undisturbed today. The shapes you begin to notice are not arranged, preserved, or curated. They are simply what remains after more than a century of stillness. Steel beams frame the space like ribs, their edges softened by corrosion that is no longer aggressive but stable. This rust is not decay in the usual sense. It is a chemical balance between metal and seawater, a slow transformation rather than destruction. Cargo objects appear partially buried, their original purpose no longer immediately clear. Some may have held machinery parts, others textiles, paper goods, or supplies intended for ports never reached. What matters is not what these objects were meant to do, but that they were never retrieved. They waited, and the world moved on without them. Marine life passes through this environment with no recognition of its history. Small fish cross the frame briefly. Shrimp drift with the current. Crabs move slowly along beams at the edges of the scene. Their presence does not animate the wreck, it normalizes it. To the ocean, this structure is not a tragedy. It is terrain. It provides shelter, surfaces, and pathways. There is no investigation, no curiosity. Movement is brief and indifferent. As the camera advances deeper into the hold, the spacing between structural frames changes. Overhead plating bends and compresses where stress reshaped the ship during its descent. These deformations did not happen over decades. They occurred in moments, when pressure exceeded design limits and steel yielded. The sediment gathers more heavily in corners and along wall bases, tracing gravity's quiet work. Nothing is suspended, nothing is disturbed. This environment does not hurry, and it does not erase quickly. Human presence is entirely absent here, not just physically, but perceptually. There are no sounds of machinery, no voices, no intent, only water moving softly, and the faint acoustic texture of a place where nothing is meant to change anymore. As the footage continues, light diminishes, not because the structure disappears, but because human vision reaches its limit long before the wreck does. Details soften, edges fade, and forms dissolve into shadow while remaining fully intact. This is an important distinction. The ship is not vanishing. It is simply no longer visible in the way the human eye expects. These deeper zones of the cargo hold were never meant to be seen again once the ship entered service. They were transitional spaces, working areas, volumes defined by engineering rather than experience. And yet, time has given them a different weight, not emotional, but contextual. Here, the absence of intervention becomes the story. Nothing has been restored. Nothing has been staged. What you are observing is a site that has been largely left alone, shaped only by water chemistry, gravity, and slow biological processes. Sediment lies smooth and continuous, indicating long periods without disturbance. Where shallow depressions form, they collect finer particles, subtly recording the direction and weakness of currents over decades. Overhead, fractured plating fades completely into darkness, corrosion patterns barely perceptible. Occasionally, a single eel passes through a narrow gap and disappears just as quickly. It does not return. There is no reason to linger. As the camera reaches the deepest interior boundaries, structural outlines become faint suggestions rather than clear forms. This is not a dramatic endpoint. It is a gradual transition from defined space into contextual darkness. The cargo hold does not end abruptly, it dissolves. By the time the final boundary appears, there is no clear separation between ship and seafloor, between structure and environment. Steel, sediment, and shadow merge into one continuous presence. This is not a grave in the theatrical sense, and it is not a monument in the traditional one. It is a site of consequence, preserved not by intention but by isolation. The ocean does not remember, but it does not forget quickly either. When the camera finally pulls back and holds on near total darkness, nothing has changed because nothing needed to. The wreck remains exactly as it was moments before the lens arrived. The marine life continues its slow, indifferent routines. The water moves, as it always has. What ends here is not the sight, but the observation. And in that withdrawal, the footage returns the space to what it has been for more than a century: quiet, unoccupied, and unconcerned with being seen.